Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Spencer. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of SmartBug Media. And today you're here for a session I'm calling So I Hear You're Not a Salesperson. So if you are in customer service, customer success, or maybe a non-sales role, this is going to be a session for you where we're going to talk about what it means to sell, give you some presentation do's and don'ts, and try to empower you with energy and passion to go out there and to do it. And then if we have time, we can do some Q&A. Although we got a pretty quick agenda today. So let's go ahead and make the most use of our time and dive right in. I should say, also, if you are a salesperson, you're still going to get something valuable out of this. So if maybe you're newer to sales, I encourage you to stay here with us. So first, let's talk about what it means to sell and that it's not what you might think. So if you were to ask me, some time ago before I got into this world of revenue leadership and sales, if what a salesperson was, this image is probably what came to mind. And maybe you're chuckling, maybe this is something that came to mind for you as well. And I get it, right? There's an old kind of a concept of what it means to sell and be a salesperson. But let's talk about what it actually means to sell. When you are selling, you are working with your customers. You're using your resourcefulness and you're using your initiative to create opportunities or possibilities for them for better outcomes. So that's a really great thing. And the other thing about selling is when you're working with a customer, with a client, you have to earn and you have to re-earn the title of being a strategic partner to them and being a trusted advisor. And you do that by offering sound advice, by knowing and communicating what needs to happen for your customer for them to produce better results, right? And one of my favorite quotes about selling is from Anthony Iannarino. And he said, selling isn't something you do to someone. It is something you do for someone and you do with someone. So remembering that it's not something that you're pushing down and it's more of a collaborative experience is just a better way of framing sales, especially for those of you who are in a non-quote sales role. So I have a few different ideas, concepts I want to run through of how you can position yourself to be more effective with upselling, with cross-selling, with getting that renewal, with getting that additional spend from your customer. And a lot of it starts with the way that you present and what a powerful presentation needs to have in order to really be successful. And I believe that powerful presentations have two things. They have clear agendas and they have really well-paced timelines. And you have this opportunity when you're in a customer success role where you're regularly meeting with your customer or with your client. And so each one of those meetings is an opportunity for it to be a presentation. And it might be really low key and conversational, and that is great, but it still should have an agenda and there should be a goal of what you're looking to get out of that meeting. So let's talk first about time management and what does it mean to manage your time effectively throughout a presentation. So the first thing that it means is that you have a plan for the meeting and you control how that time is going to be used. You're in control of it. It's not just this meeting that's on your Google or your Outlook calendar and you show up and see what happens, right? You know what's going to happen in that meeting. The other thing is, if you're managing accounts, you're managing customers, you get a sense for where time goes. So what I mean by that is where time could slip away from you in a meeting, in a presentation with a customer, and you know how and when you're going to want to make some adjustments. And a lot of that comes from comfort of doing it over and over again, or observing others on your team who are more seasoned and have been there. And the other thing that it means to have effective time management is that you're really proactive about your use of time. You want to make sure that the time that you have is serving you and not the other way around. So you're not like racing against the clock. So I have a couple of very specific pro tips for time management that I want to share with you today. So the first is to allow for Q&A, and especially when you're trying to extract something from that individual, where there's an ask, there's some kind of call to action. So a good rule of thumb is to allow between 20 to 25% of your presentation time for questions. That way you're not speaking and delivering content all the way up till the very, very end of that time that you have. The second thing is to take into account things that can go wrong, like a late client or customer or some kind of a technical glitch. Good rule of thumb, just allocate about 5 minutes for delays or interruptions. And if that means that you can end a meeting 5 minutes earlier and give that time back in your client's day, you're going to be a hero. And then my third pro tip, and this might seem silly, like why do I have to say this? But never ever be late yourself. And this I see happening far too often because we're in a fully digital, fully remote world in a lot of cases. And it's just so darn easy to book yourself in back-to-back meetings. But life happens. And plus, you have to be a human too, and you're not just a machine. So giving yourself the space in your schedule so that you're not going to be late to a meeting. All right, let's talk about agendas. And it's really important when you're presenting to make sure there is a very clear agenda. And my recommendation is that when you think about your meeting agenda, outline that structure from the customer's perspective. So think about it through their eyes, and then focus on a small number of topics that you want to cover. It might just be one. There might just be one topic that you're looking to get through in that meeting. It could be up to 3. It should never be more than 5. There's just a max amount of information that folks can take in and really consume and be able to provide feedback on. So don't overwhelm your customer with too much in one meeting. Better to break it up into multiple sessions. The other thing when you are setting that agenda is to walk through that agenda with the customer and ask them, is there anything missing that you wanted to discuss today? Or is there anything that I've got on the agenda that's not critical right now? And give them a chance to respond. And the biggest thing, and this is hard, but be prepared to change. I have been on calls where I'm the customer and the CSM is really great and walks me through the agenda of what they have planned. And I drop this bomb on them and say, I'm not prepared to talk about these things. There's this other thing that's more important to me right now. And so I want to talk about that instead. And then they don't know what to do. And they just keep moving full steam ahead on their topic. And what happens is I'm not in a position to actually consume that information. And so it's a waste of everyone's time. And then I'm just not even paying attention anymore. So you just want to be prepared to make a change on the fly. And the only way to become comfortable with this, frankly, is just to practice. And I would do some role playing among your team and just throw whatever you got at each other and then practice and record your calls and listen back to those calls. All right, let's dive in next to some presentation mistakes, still on this theme of presentation. And these are things I just see on a regular basis. The first mistake is putting too much text on the slides. Hope you guys like my little animations giffies here, but you might think this is presentations 101, right? But we all kind of it's easy to fall victim to too much. Remember, less is more. Embrace appendices, use hyperlinks when necessary. Try to keep things very plain and simple. Just remember, if your customers are reading, they're probably not listening. It's also harder for you if there's a lot of text on the slides. It's harder for you to make eye contact and really connect with your customer. And it's also important that you are able to read them for visible reactions to what you're sharing. And if I can say even more important than reading them for the visible reactions is that you actually address those visible reactions and you don't ignore them. So if you say something, if you present something and you see that your customer actually like visibly cringes, to ignore it and like just move past it, that's a mistake. You want to address it and say, "Ooh, I see you had a reaction there. Let's pause. Like, what are you thinking? How are you feeling about this?" And have that conversation. Same thing if they react really in an excited way. Use it as an action, as an opportunity to dig in and connect on a more human to human level with your customer. The second mistake that I see is people just talking too fast. So, talking faster is not the solution to wanting to serve more content than you actually have time for. It's interesting though. I was like trying to research this because I'm a fast talker, and BYU conducted a study that showed that faster speakers are perceived to be more confident. So that was interesting. So you don't want to talk too slowly. The ideal speaking rate is actually about 150 words per minute, which is also the recommended speed for audiobooks. So if you listen to audiobooks and the pace at which those speakers are speaking, that's a good pace to set for yourself. And my recommendation is just practice reading text, practice reading it out loud at varying speeds, and start with your normal speed and time yourself, and then try faster and slower, just depending on where you land. Third mistake is using filler words. So filler words are vocal crutches. They're words like, like, again, I mean, to be honest, right? And sometimes we get fancy and we start adopting other filler words that are actually really just jargon. And I'll talk a little bit about jargon in a bit, but everyone uses filler words, but if you overuse them, it's going to make you appear less confident and therefore less competent. So if you want to avoid using filler words, you honestly have to be aware of what they are. And if you're not sure what your filler words are, you probably want to record yourself and listen to the recordings. And if you listen on a regular basis, you'll hear it. The thing to remember is that silence is better, always better than a filler word. Don't be afraid of silence in your presentation. All right, apologizing, another mistake. This was interesting. Gong, big fan of Gong. They ran a study, 57% of sales calls contained apologetic language. And what happened was that overuse of apologetic language, it eliminates the power and the sincerity of the person delivering the content. It also minimizes the impact of future apologies when an apology is truly necessary. So I have a little asterisk to like use judgment. I'm not saying don't ever apologize, but don't apologize for your pricing. Don't apologize for your terms. And remember that if you make too many apologies, it will break trust. All right. My last mistake is the using internal or industry jargon. And we're actually a little bit more susceptible of using industry jargon in our written form, but be really considerate of the internal jargon or abbreviations that might be natural to you, but are foreign to your client. So until you're confident in your communication with your customer's language, you probably want to speak out every acronym, listen really closely to the way your customer communicates with you, and just meet their language choices where they are, because they might not understand what you're saying, but they might feel embarrassed about it and won't want to stop you to clarify. All right, so those were the mistakes. I want to share 3 very simple ways you can make your presentations actually shine. So first is including stories. And neuroscience studies have shown that an effective storyteller causes the neurons of an audience to closely sync with the storyteller's brain. Data is really important, but as humans, we're emotional beings. And so we make emotional decisions and then we seek data to confirm our feelings, and storytelling makes the content of your presentation more memorable. Also, wrong way. When you place your customer in the role of protagonist or the hero of the story, the message is going to resonate with them far more. And you want to make sure you define their antagonist, because even if your hero is aware of the problem they have, they might not be aware of the antagonist and how you can help them specifically. And then the last thing is, you want to be sure you're asking powerful questions. So get your customer thinking about the need for change. Ask them about what they're most concerned with, what they're afraid of. Ask them what risk there is. You want to be prepared to like meet them where they are and listen to them. But if you only make one change, I want you to stop asking this question. Does that make sense? Because 99% of the time, the answer is yes, and everyone knows it. And the other 1% of the time, the customer doesn't feel comfortable saying, no, it doesn't. So this actual phrase has become a filler statement, as meaningless as any of the other filler words that I mentioned earlier. So thank you for joining me. My final takeaway is to always project confidence. So remember, you do good work, you create value. If you've done that, you have the right to ask for more, to do your homework. If you have done that and you're really acting in the best interest of your customer, you're not going to be seen as pushy, manipulative, or salesy. Remember, if you're tentative or nervous about asking, it's going to project a lack of confidence. And a lack of confidence will give your customer a reason to believe that you don't actually believe in that value proposition. And if you don't believe that the commitment that you're asking for from them is right and not necessary for the customer, like neither will them. But your confidence comes from knowing that you have the knowledge, you have the skills, and you have the ability to support your customer. So hope this was helpful. Thank you, everyone. Make it a great day.